Hey everyone, welcome to devlog number 3 of my Spanish Town tutorial. So on the last episode, I showed how I was going with the design blockout, which I have here. So as you can recall, I was using this modular kit to quickly block out these shapes. So after this recording here, I worked quite a little bit more on the design before I moved on. So I massaged some areas, I worked on the composition, and I was just improving things and solidifying the picture, let's say, of how the environment's gonna look like in my mind. So with that out of the way, I started to replace all of that design geometry with real geometry. So it's still block out geometry, very simple models, but the scale should be more or less correct, and you know, the design is not gonna change too much from this. Now I'm just gonna start to finalize this, but as you can see, even at this level, this early stage, it's very easy to visualize how this is gonna look like. So let me just give a quick rundown of the entire space, and then I'll come back and I'll show some of the pieces. So you start here, and this is the main street, and there's this back alley here, which I'm gonna go there. So you keep walking here. I'm gonna slow down, and then you turn around, and then you have this a little, like, just more closed street, you know, like more just cozier. The buildings are closer to each other, and I just want to give this feeling that it's very homely, and just mix and matching the same building that I made, but then I reuse different parts. So the power of this method is, like, when I look at this, I can totally see myself like spending as long as I want on this particular picture and making it look finished in the end. But the true power of this method is that the entire map has corners like this. So if I turn around here, let's say this one, for example, you know, I can totally like when I get to the finishing phase, I can totally see this with plants and like small props and stuff here. But the cool thing is that the idea is there already. I built this entire map so far with just these pieces. Like that's all I needed so far to build all of this. So all these buildings, they have different sides, so I can reuse the same building in different configurations. So I'll show you in the tutorial how I got to this, but the idea is that, like, one side is a commercial building, on the side maybe it's a residential, it's a house, you know, like an entrance, and the other side is a little more ornamental. So as you can see, every side is different, so I can just mix and match the same buildings in very different ways and get all these combinations. So using this method, you can get very large areas covered with just a few assets that you're gonna make look amazing. So also there's this one here, which is a unique piece, but it's still modular because I reused it in another part. But yeah, very simple piece. it's kind of symmetrical, and I'm gonna reuse the same materials in that one. And yeah, so using those same buildings, I bet that now now that I showed the base, now you can see the same building everywhere, right? But when it gets to finalizing, I'm going to use different materials, and I'm gonna use different set dressing stuff, and I'm gonna hide the fact that it's just the same few buildings everywhere. But yeah, I'm really enjoying how this courtyard turned out. I'm just experimenting with having a little bit more color on the floor here, because then you get this really nice bounce from the floor, which is a little hard to see here, but if I go into lighting mode, you can see a little bit of that bounce on the walls. Like here it's more visible. So oh yeah, the lighting is another thing that I worked on that I'll talk about more. So just moving on, you make the curve here, and they really worked on this corner here. I'm really happy with how it turned out. Especially this part here, it feels very European, you know. This is what you would see like in a small town like this, or even in South America, because a lot of the colonial style is also very widespread in South America. So yeah, and this is the plaza. I have the church as a unique building. The church will also use a lot of the materials that I create for the other buildings, but I'm definitely gonna have to make some new ones for this, maybe like a new window, a new door, but it will mostly be constructed with assets that I create for the other pieces. So that's it, that's the entire space, and it's actually a pretty expensive place, and as I said before, it has all these little corners that I can, if I want, I can just narrow down and just work on this part. And that's one of the main things that I want to transmit with this tutorial, is how to make large environments in a more manageable way. Especially for personal work, sometimes I see a lot of artists feel uncomfortable like increasing the scope of the environment, and I totally understand why. So a lot of people end up working on just a little corner and stuff, but if you follow this tutorial, I want to teach you how to make this playable vast spaces in an easy way. Like I'm reducing the complexity here, so I can focus on what really matters, which is the sense of immersion, the sense of space. I want the player to feel like they're there, and it's very hard to accomplish that unless you work on the entire space at the same time, unless you level up the entire environment together at the same time. So like moving on, I also worked on the lighting, and when I make these pieces, I create the light map UVs. It takes like 30 seconds, but it makes a big difference. When work on this kind of stuff, don't trust the Unreal auto import, the auto UVs for light maps. It does a really bad job. It's easier to just do audio UVs in Maya and Pack. So all these buildings, they have proper light maps, very rough, so I have some artifacts here and there. But the lighting itself, I set up using the new physical lighting workflow. And the cool thing about this workflow is the old method is a little, how can I say, there's a lot of guessing in there. You know, like the numbers don't really mean anything. What I mean by that is I never knew how to set up exposure, for example. Like I would just eyeball, and and then get to something that looks kind of correct. And with the physical lighting workflow, you actually start from numbers that make sense. So you can use real exposure values for your cameras, for your camera. You can use real world intensities for the light direction, for example. And all this information you can find on the internet. So to set this up, I grabbed the HDR skybox, which, like, personally, I love to have pictures as a skybox. I'm never a fan of procedural skybox unless it's a dynamic game and it changes, you know. Some games like Red Dead Redemption or GTA 5, they do that very well. But usually the procedural sky looks a little dull. So the HDR skybox, it has all the lighting range in there. So because all this information is here, the engine knows that where the sun is much brighter than around it. So with the HDR skybox, you get this kind of look here. So you see that's coming. I don't have a point light there. I don't have a glow. That's coming straight from the picture. The picture has all that information. And because with the physical lights, you have a much wider range, you get much more interesting gradients. So look how rich this looks here, you know, just from the sun. And like here I get all this bounce, this indirect bounce. Look, the sun is not even hitting this surface, but the indirect lighting is still creating all these bounces. So I really recommend you set up lighting before you start work on the materials. And to set up lighting, I'm gonna show in the tutorial how I did this. It took, I think it's 45 minutes, the video. It's very short, very easy, anyone can learn. And with this workflow, you can make all kinds of lighting, because the process is the same. You know, you can just get a new skybox and change the values and stuff, but there's a set of rules you can follow that will always give a somewhat correct result. I'm sure this is not perfect, you know, it's just a first pass. But now when I start working on the materials, I already have all this lighting information there that's really gonna make these materials pop. So that's it. From here, I'm gonna start working on the materials now, and I'm very excited to actually start replacing this with tileables. And yeah, it's my favorite part. And I think like now that all this solid foundation is in place, it's gonna be very easy and very fun to populate this map. And also that's another, it's how I like to work too. I like to separate the production in stages. So I can simplify this idea in three main stages. So the first stage is the foundation, the design, like blockout work, which is the one that I just finished. So in this stage, I'm thinking about composition, and I'm thinking about how I'm going to build this. I'm thinking about all the ways that I can simplify, that I can do more with less. So that part of the process uses a very specific part of the brain, you know, like a more of a logical part of the brain. And now the second stage, which is the production stage, the layout in this case is already set up. I'm not gonna change it anymore. I might do some tweaks here and there for scale, but I don't have to think about that anymore. Like now I can start focusing on the trees, because I already set up the forest. So now I can really like narrow down on like one building and make that building look cool. And because I'm using this building several times in the map, it's just gonna propagate, you know. I only have to make a few buildings and then all the city is gonna come together. So it's a very powerful method. So that's step number two. And step number 3 is, after everything is in place, then I'm gonna start polishing, which is where I'm just gonna really turn off my brain and just focus on making stuff look cool, look better, look good. So that's when I tweak the lighting, that's when I tweak post-processing, that's when I do a set dressing, that's when I add decals and props and all that stuff. And I guarantee you that if you have a strong foundation and you have good production, when you get to the polish phase, you can make like a simple environment look, I don't know, like 100 times better. So that's it for now. If you wanna stay in touch, like I'm posting updates on Twitter and in other places, and also I want to talk about the deadline for this. So originally my plan was to get this done by March, which is definitely not happening, and I'll explain why. So it's, as everyone else, I'm also learning as I make this, and I'm improving my process. And so when I set that deadline, the way I thought about it is like, okay, so how long does it take me to make this kind of environment? But because I have a full-time job, that takes up a lot of my brain power, my time to actually work on this is very limited. So I have these windows of time that I can sit down and work, like this one I'm having now. It's Wednesday night, 9:30 p.m. So if I was working on this full time, I could totally say like, oh, I can hit this date. But because I don't have visibility on how much time available I have for this, I removed the deadline for now. So one thing is for sure, I'm gonna release it this year, and the way it's gonna be worth it, because I'm putting so much knowledge here. This is like the way I like to see it's like Neo in the Matrix when he starts to download those like kung fu, karate like skills. That's what I'm aiming with this tutorial. If you follow the tutorial, you're gonna download all this valuable information that I learned throughout all these 15 years of experience, and you're gonna be able to do so much more. So yeah, okay, this video is getting a little too long, so that's it. Oh, and also the last thing, because people always ask about the pre-orders, and so I offered a heavily discounted version of the tutorial for the last 2 updates, but now I'm going to start putting the prices that are closer to the final price. So with this tutorial, I'm not gonna run sales for like a good time after I release it, because I really believe in the value that I'm offering here, and it's also like it's a crazy amount of work. So I'm opening the pre-orders now. They're gonna be open, and if you go to Gumroad right now, you see that you can pre-order for, this is the lowest price that I will ever sell the tutorial. I mean, not ever, because maybe 2 years from now I can have a sale maybe, but this is the lowest price that you can get at this stage. And with time I'm gonna raise the price, because the more stuff I have, the more value is visible. And so if you're looking to get this tutorial, you can do the pre-order now. You don't have to. And also the pre-order, you only charge it when the tutorial comes out. So it's not like you're paying now and let's say tomorrow I die and you lose your money. That's not gonna happen. So yeah, so I just wanted to put that out there. But that's it, and thank you so much for for all the support, and you know, it's been amazing. I've been getting so many messages, and people are so amazing. I'm so happy that we have this direct connection. You know, I love when people reach out and message me on Twitter or email. You know, like I love to be in touch with people, and it really feeds me creatively. So yeah, I hope to come back soon with another update, and see you soon.